Hello and welcome to another video where Dixie rants about Middle Eastern ghost guns. In this video, we will be covering a single ghost gun, which is the Sauer P320 style Golan pistol, which has appeared in Syria in 2025. Like my previous Delta Defense Group DDG video, which covered other Middle Eastern ghost guns, this video is completely unscripted. It is not a video essay. It is a rant. I do have some notes in front of me on a small notepad. So if you do hear some paper noises, that's what that is. Please bear with me if I slur my words, mispronounce some words, repeat some things, or go back and try and add on things that may or may not have been previously mentioned. I am an amateur at this. Hopefully the audio quality is decent. Right now it is being recorded in a closet while I'm sitting on a .30 caliber ammo can. So, like you saw by the title and the thumbnail, this Golan pistol is a 6-hour P320 M17 clone, you may call it. If you do pay attention to gun news, or more accurately called gun drama, the SIG P320 has been in the news recently with, its alleged issues. I'll say alleged, even though there are court cases. But most of this information that's being brought up recently, which is, negatively put on the P320, it's old information. It's just being rehashed. There might be a few little news sources, but it's mostly old information, and I do not personally trust, P320 pistols to carry, but I will say a lot of the anti-SIG people at the moment, there's a lot of grifters and just attention seekers who are beating a dead horse because when you hit it, money and views are coming out of it, so you got to keep that in mind. But you also have to keep in mind a lot of the people who are just vehemently defending the P320. A lot of them are shills too. So like everything, vet your sources and, trust no one, including me. So let's begin with the Golan. So yeah, this is a 6-hour P320 M17 style pistol that first started appearing, at least that I've seen from my sources that I've gathered through open source intelligence. First started appearing in Syria in 2025, early January, and I've seen them being posted and whatnot, discussed up until this month, which is April of 2025. So let's first discuss Syria. So in 2024, late 2024, December specifically, the Syrian government, Assad regime, it collapsed. And the rebel group, who is abbreviated as HTS, which I believe I can say that abbreviation, basically took over Syria and is right now an interim government who's been in charge since pretty much December of 2024. So it's important to note these pistols started appearing after the fall of Assad's government. And what's important to note about the fall of Assad's government is all his shit was raided after he left and fled to Russia. So his palaces were raided. The Syrian Arab army bases and armories were raided. So right now, and since this takeover, there's been a lot of arms circulating in the Syrian arms kind of gray market, I guess, now, because, of course, you do have interim kind of FSA remnant forces, seizing weapons from pro-Assad people. So it's kind of a gray market. It's always been kind of a gray market anyway. And also the arms trade between Lebanon and Syria is flowing quite well at the moment, you could say. So I don't know where these pistols came from is what I'm getting at, but they appeared after the fall of Assad and the raiding of his armories. And I've only seen approximately 5 or 6 of these pistols, which is wild because right now you're seeing vast amounts of weapons. You're seeing large amounts of Kalashnikovs of all various sorts. You got the AK-100 series guns, out on the market in numbers, a lot of AK-104s, including more recent production AK-104s. I believe I've seen 2018 production AK-104s now on the market. You got actual AK-103s, and you'll be like, oh, well, I've seen AK-103s in Syria used by rebels. Well, a lot of those were actually AK-103-2s, Libyan contract guns that were smuggled, likely via Turkey, into Libya, and used by Turkish-backed rebel groups. But now we're seeing actual AK-103s, which likely came from Assad's armories. A lot of 1997 AK-74Ms and their ammunition, a lot of 5.45 is flowing into the market. And of course, the new cool guy guns are the, Assad government-used MP5Ks. Of course, the 9A91 Russian 9x39 compact assault rifles with their reflex sight. Those are a very cool guy gun. You see some 9x39 ammunition, basically a bunch of stuff from bolt action French guns like Moss 36s to, the most modern AKs, like even an AK-12 appeared on the market, and, a couple other weird Russian guns like PP-2000s. It's whatever, but amongst all this, I have seen more MP5Ks than I've seen more of these Golan pistols. So, let's get into the Golan itself. Of course, I previously stated this is a P320 M17 style pistol. There is a difference between the P320 M17 commercial guns and the actual legitimate M17s. I do have a 6 Sauer M17 and M18 collection. Fortunately, I do not own a POS P320 M17 or M18, but I will say it would have been beneficial for this video if I owned one of those for comparison purposes. But the traits of that is you have the grip that holds the P320 M17 and the M17 and the Golan, is you have the compact dust cover and the full-length grip, which holds flush-fit 17-round magazines. So, unlike the P320 M17, this pistol is a little bit simplified. It lacks night sights, still features a manual safety, and you've got the 17-round magazines. Markings on this pistol, the frame appears to be completely new, which I want to note, if you know anything about polymer manufacturing, injection molded polymer, the molds are extremely expensive. This is not something you just start up to make a couple of these guns, which I've only seen a few of these guns documented in the whole region. Like I said, 5 or 6. And this appears to be a completely new frame. You see 2 colors. You see black Golan pistols, and you see tan Golan pistols. So you do get 2 types of polymer there, unless the tan ones are painted, or maybe the black ones are painted, but it does appear to be 2 different polymers. These are marked, at least the frames are marked where it normally would say like Newington, New Hampshire, USA, or whatever it says for the P320 or M17 pistols. Instead of that, it says Golan-Syria, implying that the pistol is made in Syria, which I doubt. And then on the grip, instead of it saying Sig Sauer, you have a marking which appears to be GMI or GMC, which is funny because one of these pistols in the box that's included with it, it has what appears to be a sticker which is of the logo of this company that I do not think exists. I did some minor research on this GMC, GMI company. I couldn't find anything. But just note, that sticker looks pretty similar to a sticker or logo that Sig Sauer uses, where it's a black circle, white background with black letters of SIG in the black circle. I would say that's quite similar, and it's kind of funny that this mysterious ghost company that made this ghost gun even made stickers for these pistols. At least that's assuming that sticker came from the pistol from this mysterious factory. So what else on this pistol? We got some markings on the chamber, very faintly. We got 9mm x 19, 9mm by 19. You will also see the same markings on like M17 pistols. You have the serial number in the same place as a P320 or an M17, and next to the serial number to the left of the Golan-Syria, we do have a QR code, which is also like the M17. The whole finish and everything is very similar to the... It looks... It's not PVD or whatever. I'd say the color is more similar to an actual M17. It could be Cerakote or something like that. It's hard to say, at least the FDE one. The rear sight is P320 M17 style, not an M17 style. There is a difference between the M17 optics plate and rear sight and the P320-M17 optics plate and sight. I believe the M17 M18 pistols only use one screw. There's mechanical differences between the P320 M17 replicas and the actual M17 pistols. Maybe I will do a video on, M17, M18 pistols one day. But nonetheless, yeah, P320 M17 style, I believe I previously mentioned, these do not have tritium sights, night sights. It just appears that they have three dot sights that are just painted white dots, which kind of makes sense, if you're making a pistol and that region doesn't really care about night sights necessarily, unlike the American and European police military market or civilian market. Just give them, three white dots for simplicity. Also, I believe tritium is more regulated, and it depends on the area, and its transport is regulated because it is a radioactive element. But overall, the machining quality on these pistols does look phenomenal, as well as the finish. And it is funny because the one that did come with a sticker, if we're talking about what these come with, I've seen two of these come with a cleaning brush. We got the black one, so the P320 M17 Bravo style. The P320 M17 Bravo is basically a black P320 M17, which I believe was a Tallow exclusive, a distributor exclusive. It's also been locked behind like an LE only window in the United States where only LE could purchase it. Don't know why. But those come with a cleaning rod. But this tan one that comes with the GMI or GMC sticker, that also comes with a gun lock, which is like a US thing, which is funny. The pistol case this is in has crudely cut foam. It kind of looks like a Glock pistol case, and you see two magazines. It seems like all of these come with two 17-round magazines. Back to the markings. That they look laser etched instead of laser engraved on the left side of the slide. It does look like they have laser etched Golan onto the front left side of the slide, where normally it would say P320 and then M17 it says Golan. It's important to note that laser etching, it is different than laser engraving. Laser etching machines are way more affordable than actual laser engraving machines. So that is another interesting thing to note about these pistols. The magazines look like P320 magazines down to the two holes in the front. I have a variety of P320 magazines. It's important to note some are contracted out, made by other manufacturers that are not SIG. I believe Metgar makes P320 magazines for SIG. You'll see some P320 magazines made in Italy. You'll see some made in the United States. And some P320 magazines, like the magazines seen with these Golan pistols, have those two holes on the front of the magazine, which looks like these pistols copied. The base plates on these magazines that the Golan has, also they have matching color base plates. They have FDE for FDE frame/slide Golans, and black for the P320 M17 Bravo style Golan pistols. These are also like second generation or M17 style magazines. They do have the over insertion stop on the base plate. They also have the 3 witness holes on the side of the magazine. Normally on Sig mags, these are marked with like stampings, but on the Golan, they're marked with laser etching. And these magazines do say on one side, made in Syria, where they have the windows. And then on the other side, it says Golan 9mm by 19-17. So that's what the cartridge the magazine is intended to hold, and the quantity of ammunition. So yeah, that looks like laser etching to me. And then going on, we do have one of these Golan pistols that looks to be made of unfinished parts, which is odd. It looks like they may be slightly corroded, but the trigger, takedown, slide release, and safety, and slide all appear to be in the white. Which reminds me of those like Walter pistols that were made right at the end and after the Second World War, that were made with just various parts found around the Walter factory. And then after the war, GIs who were stationed in Germany for security purposes, they would like buy these pistols from the workers at the Walter factory. And that's where you get all these weird Walter PPs and PPKs with various random ass parts on them. That's kind of what this pistol reminds me of. This one that has an FDE frame and in the white looking parts. What's also interesting is on that one, it also looks like they skipped the QR code and just have a serial number. Serial number looks like a combination of letters and numbers. So it's important to note, real M17s, like military contract ones, those start with a TF. I believe the M18s are TC, the serial number abbreviations. So, who do I think made these pistols? Well, I don't think these were made in Syria. Syria, they really haven't made small arms. Besides like conversions and, making large like rebel groups in like the Kurds, the PKK, making anti-material rifles using existing barrels. I don't really count those, but Syria and its government really hasn't made small arms. I know there's the rumors of the North Korean Type 68s that were made in Syria. Those were likely made in the DPRK and just under contract for the Syrian government. At most, they were assembled in Syria from DPRK-made parts under like watch of DPRK advisors, similar to Ethiopia. Who else to tick off the list on not making these? I don't think these are Iranian. These do not scream DIO or Defense Industries Organization made, weapons. Iranian-made small arms kind of have a vibe to them. They have quirks like certain kind of styling to the serial numbers and markings, and these do not scream Iranian. I do not also think these were made in Iraq. Right now, really the only firearms produced in Iraq, like by actual factories like the Government Defense Industries Commission, are Chinese-made weapons, which is funny because you have Iran and Iraq both making clones of Chinese-made weapons. Who would have thought that? But yeah, they're too busy on making clones of Chinese weapons to be making clones of, a complex pistol like the P320. Again, this Golan, these pistols look well made for the most part. The frames look maybe a little more rough than actual P320s. But to make the slides and all these components, it's pretty complex. It's not an easy thing. If you've ever had a P320 FCU out of a P320 or just took apart the slide of a P320 or M17, M18, they're kind of a complex gun. It's not an easy thing to clone. I do not think these pistols were made in the UAE or Saudi Arabia or Oman or any of those other small Middle Eastern nations. I doubt it. I don't think these were made in Yemen, but it is important to note that Yemen does make a lot of clones of firearms. The Yemeni Military Production Authority, I believe, they make a Glock clone, as well. Of course, they make the AK-104 and AK-103 clones. Who knows if they have the actual technical data package for the AK-103 and AK-104 clones? If I had to bet, since Iran got, I would say I'm 95% sure that Iran got the TDP for the AK-103 from Russia. So, Iran and Yemen are pretty close. I wouldn't be surprised, and kind of Yemen and the Houthi government and Russia are kind of friends. I wouldn't be surprised if they got the actual TDP for the AK-103. But nonetheless, they also make a Glock clone, and there's some other clones they make in Yemen, but their Glock clones are pretty decent. They make a good clone of the Glock 19X. In the Middle East region, if you didn't know, the 19X is a cool guy gun. All the way from Yemen to Palestine to Syria to Iraq. I'd say the 19X is it's a cool guy gun, and they make clones of that in Yemen, as well as just like Gen 3 19 clones. But I will say in Yemen, the P320 M17 and P320 M18 are cool guy guns, but they have legitimate ones that they somehow get in the country. Legitimate P320 M17 and M18 pistols made by Sauer. You will see those in gun stores in Yemen, and they're kind of a cool guy gun. Frankly, all the American modular handgun system applicant guns or trial guns are cool guy guns in Yemen. That includes the Beretta M9A3 and the M&P 2.0, like kind of long slide with manual safety in 9x19. So I'd probably rule out Yemen on not making these pistols, but they're probably. I kind of doubt it, but let's go into who I think kind of likely made these pistols. There's really only 3 countries I can think of who actually made these pistols. 2 of them border Syria, where the Golan is allegedly made. Again, I doubt this pistol was made in Syria. Like I've said previously, they kind of have lacked the production capacity and infrastructure to make a clone of a 6-hour P320 and its magazines. It's too random. So the first one we'll talk about that borders Syria is Turkey. Of course, Turkey has a thriving arms industry with numerous manufacturers that make military and commercial grade weapons. I'm sure any American and European has seen the dozens of Turkish shotguns that appear every year, not to mention all the Turkish handguns, some of them ranging from shitty to actually pretty decent, such as the Canics. And also Turkey makes military grade weapons like Sar Zilmaz, I don't know how to pronounce that, sorry, and MKE, which is an abbreviation. Both of those arms manufacturers make weapons for the Turkish government as well as other governments. And you will see the Sar Zilmaz, the SAR 308 AK, I believe that's what it's called. That weapon appears in Syria as well, amongst other Turkish firearms appearing in the Middle East as ghost guns. That's not even counting the dozens of styles of Turkish blank guns that are all over the Middle East in large numbers. That's like if you need a cheap handgun in the Middle East, the cheapest option is a Turkish-made forward-venting blank gun that has been converted for center-fire ammunition, most likely 9x19 millimeter or 380 in 9x19. That is absolutely terrifying. It's a hand grenade that could go off at any discharge, and it could be just blow up in your face. And there's of course videos of that, but that's the cheap pistol in the region, such as Syria and Iraq, and like Palestine is the converted Turkish blank guns like Retes and Zorakis, is two big brands. One of those also is Sionix, which has previously made ghost guns allegedly in the region. You will see what appears to be Sionix Sion 9 pistols in Iraq that are labeled DDG-19s. This is like a Glock style 9x19 auto-loading pistol that looks identical to the Sion 9, which is hilarious because you'll see actual Sion 9s in Iraq. So you'll see both the DDG looking Sion 9s and actual Sion 9s, and they're basically identical besides the markings. So explain that to me on where those came from. What's funny is Sionix, this Turkish arms manufacturer, they also make a forward-venting blank fire 9mm PAK, which is what most of these blank fire guns are chambered for, P320 style pistol, although it really doesn't look like a P320. And they also make a 6-hour P250 style blank fire pistol. Of course, these Golan pistols, you can see by the top of the chamber that they are locking, and they have tilting barrels. So I don't think these are blank fire conversions. These are short recoil operated, auto-loading 9x19mm pistols that feed by detachable magazines. So the Golan isn't a conversion, in my opinion. So who knows? Did a Turkish arms manufacturer start manufacturing these? I don't know why they would, and again, it's such few numbers. So it's possible. There's a lot of Turkish arms manufacturers. Again, the magazines are kind of a hard thing to manufacture, and to get sanitized magazines where they added the laser engraving, so magazines that weren't stamped. That's another thing, and I don't know. So Turkey is option one. Option two, another country that borders Syria, is Israel. And this also ties into the name of the pistol, the Golan, is when Assad's government fell, I believe Israel did a land grab and seized the Golan Heights, which is a area of land, raised elevation land that Syria and Israel have been bickering over for decades. And another kind of important tie to Israel and Sig Sauer is the current CEO of Sig Sauer is Ron Cohen, who is an Israeli who served in the IDF. I believe he also previously worked at Kimber and then went to Sig Sauer. So he is an Israeli who did serve in the IDF. Again, most Israeli men serve in the IDF and women. But that's something to note. Also, that Sig Sauer does have small arms components made in Israel. A lot of internal components. I remember when you used to see the P320 when it came with holsters. I believe like those holsters and other little polymer accessories were made in Israel. Maybe even the boxes. A lot of polymer components for weapons are made in Israel, and you can just tell they have like a style and a feeling of polymer that you can just tell is Israeli. Once you're in this industry and around guns long enough, you just know that vibe. Another thing to note is Sig Sauer did recently purchase an Israeli robotics company. The IDF do use a number of Sig Sauer weapons, such as IDF Special Forces using MCX carbines and Sig Sauer optics over CAR-15s. They've kind of transitioned to using the MCX as a replacement for older CAR-15s, which were like M16A1 conversions from M16s they got in the 70s for basically free, or later other carbines they've got and conversion kits like ones from DSA. It's also another thing is that Israel recently did adopt the 6-hour M250, which you may know as the Sig Sauer XM250 that the U.S. Army adopted in 6.8 by 51. But Israel, I believe, is one of the only other adopters of this weapon. They adopted in 7.62 by 51 NATO. So yeah, they didn't really have to invest in all of the R&D there. Then we got another funny thing is there is a, or was an Israeli-made pistol that was called the Golan, which was a copy of another pistol. So the KSN Golan was a copy of the Zastava CZ99 pistol. So that's kind of a Sig Sauer P226, at least aesthetically looking. It's more similar to other pistols internally, but aesthetically it looks like a P226. And this Golan was allegedly made in Israel. Who knows? It could have been assembled from parts that were made by Zastava and then just put together in Israel and branded as an Israeli-made pistol. A lot of companies do that. The last option of the third country that could have possibly made this mysterious Golan pistol. This is very far-fetched, and me, I love conspiracies and all this, but this is the most far-fetched here, is that these are possibly American-made, at least made with American-made components. Who knows? Could this be another spook gun, like, a sanitized pistol meant to be used by, CIA spooks or other, U.S. or Western intelligence or special forces? Similar to like how the well rod was completely sanitized. But this is pretty obvious on what it's trying to be, and the markings, are very blatant. In English, too, made in Syria on the magazine, and Syria-Golan on the frame, and Golan on the slide. So it's not Arabic, per se, but again, if you look at like the Iraqi Tabuk or whatever, those markings on the rear sight block are in English, and apparently, having the markings in English gives some sort of more authenticity or more respect to the weapon, making it seem higher end. At least that's the theory. So there is that to factor. But really, I can't see these really being a spook gun. A friend who I talked to did bring up the idea of what if these are kind of sanitized versions of the M17, which it is a P320 M17, but it has the same controls as everything, and everything as a regular M17, that were meant to be used by special forces or whatnot, and if they lost these sidearms, that they're not directly tied back to the United States or whatever. That's a theory, but it's pretty far-fetched. Another theory someone brought up to me is, what if these were, assembled by a rogue, U.S. group of people or Western group of people who somehow acquired 6-hour parts or whatever in the U.S. that were sanitized, like P320 blank slides, which I believe SIG has offered unmarked slides to companies. I believe Wilson Combat got unmarked P320 slides, so it's something they have done before, where again these slides are just that the Golan has are just appear to be crudely laser etched with the Golan marking, and that this rogue group acquired these sanitized parts and were somehow had a mold with the GMI or GMC thing, which again the molds are very expensive to make, or it's not 3D printed or additive manufacturing by the looks of it. They have injection mold markings on the frame. So in this rogue group, thought they were going to make a bunch of money by selling these, because usually pistols, especially Western ones, go for several $1,000s in the Middle East. But I don't know. That's also far-fetched. So we only have 5 or 6 examples to go off of again. And you can kind of endlessly go on with the conspiracy theories. So, yeah, let me know in the comments where you think the Golan pistol was made. And if you think it's more reliable and more trustworthy than an actual 6-hour P320, would you carry the Golan? Who knows? Another thing I want to mention, because, a lot of this information was gathered via open source intelligence. If you want to get into that, totally, you can figure it out on your own if you're passionate about it. You don't need to do these open source intelligent classes. I think that's just like another scam. Like these learn how to be a man type of classes scams. It's kind of the same bullshit. You can figure it out on your own. Just start your own Twitter, Instagram page, or YouTube, and you can figure out how to do open source intelligence. It's pretty easy, to trace things and whatnot, or just find pictures other people about and talk about the gun or whatnot. Just do not get used by people. Know your worth, and don't do things for free. Don't spend time, identifying weapons or giving people sources for free. Sources are very valuable to you if you do open source intelligence, and it's not something you give away for free. So know your worth, and if you're helping someone, try and, get something out of it. It doesn't have to be monetarily. At least it can be some sort of collaboration. All I'm just saying is don't get used out there, guys. And if you're passionate about this, you can do it. And I would say I'm an amateur at this. I've only been doing it for a couple years, but intelligence gathering, especially about small arms, is something I'm definitely passionate about. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Again, it was a rant. I hope to do more of these in the future, but again, it's a little bit hard to get inspired to do these, and it does take a lot of time. But yeah, I am glad to hopefully add some original and unique, at least in my opinion, P320 content instead of this slop that has been coming out recently that is meant to generate likes, views, and money. Y'all have a good one. Goodbye.